Megan here, and I'm back in Rapaniska for day 3, the final day of Ploughing 2022. And I'm joined here by Fabian Priot. Fabian, thanks for joining me.
Yes, it's nice to see you.
So look, we're here at the HerdWatch stand, and HerdWatch is really a platform, I suppose, to make things easier for farmers in terms of herd management. It also is really geared at going towards a paperless management system and streamlining things in that kind of way. So do you want to tell me a little bit about how the system works, I suppose, maybe start off with why go towards technology rather than paper?
Yeah, I think you've captured the essence of HerdWatch there in a few words, fair play. It is really about making farmers' lives easier.
Yeah.
And I'm often asked, who's your biggest competitor? And it's not actually a smart answer, but it's pen and paper.
Yeah.
Because over 80% of farmers still only have pen and paper to manage their herds, which in this day and age, is kind of hard to believe.
It is.
And so we came in nearly 10 years ago now with this paperless solution, or at least as paperless as we can get it. And HerdWatch really takes farmers from that pen and paper stage into the digital era.
Okay.
But the key there is to do it in the most simple way possible.
Yeah,
and that's really what we try and do. So getting going on HerdWatch is very, very easy. And what happens is farmers come to us with issues or worries around compliance, right? All to do with recording your treatments, recording your movements, recording your calf registrations. That's sort of the main reason why people join. And sometimes it's even hard to explain to them how much time and hassle they will save using the product.
Yeah.
And the best way we find is say, listen, just give it a go.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, they come back to us saying, I don't know how I managed before. So that's the best way I can describe it to you, because it's transformational is the word I would use, for farmers to go from pen and paper to a digital system.
Yeah, because there is so many things to think about. There's so many jobs. You're talking registrations, treatments, breeding. There's just an endless amount of things to keep track of. And you mentioned there that still 80% of farmers are using pen and paper, and that in this day and age that is kind of hard to believe. But I suppose, is that maybe because there's a little bit of skepticism among farmers about technology? It is slightly new for them. Are they thinking to themselves, oh, I don't know now, like, how's that going to go, and maybe my data and things like that? Is that something you've come up against?
A little bit, but it isn't. I think it's a journey, essentially.
Yeah.
And I never like to sort of single out farmers from any other business, area out there. For me, they're business people.
Yeah.
And if you give them a productivity tool, like HerdWatch, that saves them 3 hours a week, they will do it. Now, you always have that issue because they're going from pen and paper to digital.
Yeah.
That's a big step for anyone.
Yeah.
And you're asking those kind of questions. How hard is it? Will I be able to do it? My data, is it safe? So for example, those two things, I've already mentioned how easy it is to get going, and that's a fact. It's so easy. The second thing is, because we're a cloud-based service, when you enter information into your phone, it gets backed up to the cloud, saved to another place.
Yeah.
So if you break your phone, you drive over it, I've heard all sorts of stories. You don't lose your records, everything is safe. So you just pick up another phone and log in, and you have all your records. So we address those things by trying to explain how easy it is and that there is no risk. And in fact, I always tell this story, and it's a true story. One of the early ploughings, a dairy farmer came up to me and told me I was fantastic at keeping records. My blue book was always up to date, and then one day it fell on the dairy floor. Picked up the book. It was wet, dusted it off, put it on the shelf. When I went back to look at it again a few weeks later, all the pages were stuck together.
Okay, destroyed.
So he had the best records in the world, but I couldn't get to them.
Yeah. Okay.
So this can't happen with HerdWatch, right?
Yeah.
And the other angle is, this is the kind of cherry on the cake. When you record in a book or on paper, you are never able to look back, say, that cow, that sheep.
Yeah.
What happened to them? What's their history? It's impossible to do in a book.
You can't search by a specific number, cow, whatever. Whereas, is that possible on HerdWatch?
Absolutely. So in a HerdWatch, you find a particular animal and you can see their whole history. Whereas treatments, breeding, anything else that happened to that animal, it's all there for you to see. So you could be walking around the field, even with no internet access. You see a cow there, she's lame.
Yeah.
You check her out. Oh, that's the 3rd time she's lame. You know that on the spot. So they're the little things that we try and explain to people who are maybe a little bit reluctant or hesitant.
Yeah, absolutely.
And usually it gets them over the line to kind of go, well, okay, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned there breeding, and I can see some lovely cattle here behind you on the poster. I suppose, dairy it can be intensive, and we all know that. But a lot of the time, when it comes to suckler farmers, people may say, well, it's just as intensive because a lot of suckler farmers have an off-farm job as well, and it can be hard to maybe keep such a close eye on their cattle and stuff like that. So where can herd watch come in for them in terms of maybe breeding and getting cows into calf quicker, and I suppose not missing heats and all of that kind of stuff, because it can be hard to really keep your focus on that when you're so busy doing other things. You may have another job, family, you're trying to juggle so many balls. So where can herd watch come in for things like that?
It's very true, and in fact I think we did a survey recently where we found that I think it was about 50% of our members have an off-farm job.
Yeah.
So you can just imagine, the level of, stress and, time that they don't have really. So you mentioned breeding, and it's obviously key for suckler farmers.
Yeah.
So we have a whole breeding module, which you can see actually on the screen that's on the wall behind us.
Okay.
And what that breeding module does is it helps farmers essentially virtually see what step of the breeding cycle they're at.
Okay.
All the way from insemination to calving, we have what we call these smart lists, right? And these smart lists tell you which cows have been inseminated, which cows might repeat and need to be watched, which cows are about to calve, and which cows are overdue. So you can't, it's almost impossible to miss something.
Yeah,
and that's what we like. But it's trying to do it in a way that's not overpowering. So because you could sort of, I suppose, shower people with notifications and all sorts of alerts. It's trying to put it in a context. So there's another feature in the app called the watchboard.
Okay.
And the job of the watchboard is to tell you what you need to worry about today.
Okay.
And you go to the watchboard, and usually there's 2 or 3 different things. For example, it could be these cows are about to calve. Watch them. You could have a couple of calves that were born 3 weeks ago that you haven't registered.
Okay.
And it tells you, make sure you register these calves.
Gentle reminder.
Gentle reminder. So on the breeding cycle, we've got a really, really good system. It's probably as good as we can get it without sort of hardware, which we don't, get. We don't have hardware at the moment. So it's sort of the best you can get without going to the hardware level. Yeah. And look, of course, as you probably know, we're part of FRS, Farm Relief, and a lot of those part-time farmers also sometimes need extra help.
Yeah,
and
course.
So we have a feature inside the app that allows people, again, you don't have the time to be going to potentially visit an FRS office or call somebody.
Yeah.
We have a feature in the app called where you can book an FRS operator directly from within the app without having to, even make a phone call. Pick the location, pick the type of work you're looking for, and that gets automatically sent to FRS. So it's just really, really good.
Yeah, and I suppose it makes it easier for farmers in terms of, you might log on to the app to check one thing or record one thing or whatever, and your eye flickers over to the corner and you see something and you remind yourself, I totally forgot about that or whatever it is, because as you said, they're just juggling so many balls. And I remember, I suppose, the TB regulations now have been deferred. We're looking at them coming in, I think, around February and stuff like that. And look, TB is something that it can be very stressful for farmers. They can be out of the game for a long time if they have a case and things like that. Is there anything connected to TB or maybe around what regulations are coming in or even reminders or anything? Do you take care of that in the app a little bit?
Yes, to a point. So we do what we can. And essentially, there's 2 things we do in the app. The first thing is we tell farmers we have one of those smart lists that I mentioned. Is essentially a smart list that shows them any animals that don't have a TB test date.
Okay.
So farmers can go in there and quickly see which animals haven't been tested potentially, right?
Yeah.
And then the second one is actually a warning about animals that either are out of test, so their date has passed and they need to be retested, or animals that, God forbid, have failed the TB test.
Okay.
So it's sort of trying to be as proactive as we can. Being connected directly to the Department of Agriculture in terms of the systems allows us to be sort of on the ball, you could say, in terms of being able to tell farmers as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But I know it's a very sort of stressful and developing story at the moment, so we're going to always try and do our best to help farmers.
Well, I suppose that's why it's great to be, I suppose, connected to the department. You're getting the most up-to-date, most accurate information. You're not fueling the rumour mill, I suppose. It's just completely accurate, coming straight down from the regulatory body and all of that as well. So in terms of, we've talked a little bit about cattle and all that. What else who else can use herd watch? I know maybe if you're a sheep farmer or whatever, can I use herd watch then, or am I out of the loop?
You can't use Herdwatch, but you can use Flockwatch.
Oh, okay.
So
Tell me about that.
Flockwatch is basically Herdwatch for sheep farmers. We worked on that for about 2 years.
Oh, brilliant.
And Flockwatch is essentially, it lives in the same app.
Okay.
I like to say they're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
As you know yourselves, a lot of cattle farmers who also keep sheep.
Yeah.
And Flockwatch is essentially our new product. It launched in March, so only 6 months ago, just about 6 months ago. And it's really captured sheep farmers' imagination.
Really?
And essentially, it will help them. I mean, I'm not a farmer myself, but I've spoken with a lot of sheep farmers, and we have sheep farmers on our great team. And what they tell me is, as a sheep farmer, the hardest thing to do is to keep track of what's happening, particularly at lambing times, for example, or I suppose what animals are performing well and what animals aren't performing well. So Flockwatch is that's the product that sheep farmers can go for. And the feedback we've had so far, I have to say, has been overwhelming. Really,
positive.
Yeah, very, very positive.
Brilliant.
So we're delighted with that.
And Ploughing 2022, how's it been going for you so far?
In a few words, it's been the best ploughing ever. I mean, and look, obviously there was a lot of anticipation after. People say 2 years, but to me it's 3 years. We missed 2, but that's 3 years ago. And we have a team of 15 people on site here. They've been amazing, talking to hundreds of farmers. Most of them members already, calling in to either ask us a question or mostly to tell us that they love the app, which is fantastic to hear, obviously. And getting lots of new members on board as well. And so it's been an amazing 2 days. We're on day 3 now, and I know it's a little bit damp outside, but it's certainly the spirits aren't damp at all.
I think the atmosphere will hold up. Listen, Fabien Priault, CEO and co-founder of Herdwatch, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.